right. So this one, we're looking at something. This is following up from the video, the bebop lick of the day video from yesterday. I forget what number it was, but we were looking at Hank Mobley, something he played on This I Dig of You, and I just got to thinking a bit more about that. On that last video, we were focusing on this idea of the augmented fifth, or the augmented chord, the dominant chord using the augmented fifth, and referring to this note, C sharp over the F7. So this shape right here, this first line, is taken from something that Hank Mobley played on the very beginning of his solo on This I Dig of You. Something like this. And so over 251, and I'm calling this overall page the May-Me idea, because I wanted to talk a little bit about how I sometimes think about solfege in the context of these types of lines. So solfege, if for those who don't know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, that whole system of associating these sounds with different scale degrees. And so mi is the third note of the major scale. Me is the lowered third. So if we're talking about in the key of B flat, the third is D, and me is the lower third, which is D flat. So actually this note is me in the key. So if I think of just the overall, if I think of these notes kind of just in the key, not thinking about how they relate to the passing chords, this is the tonics, this is do. So we have do, 1, that's the 6, which is la. So do, la, fa, me, ti, la, sol. Do, la, fa, me, ti, la, sol. So me, the syllable me actually wants to resolve to me, wants to resolve up a half step, and I've indicated that on this next line. So same shape and same phrase, but then just adding here in parentheses, that's where this note is resolving to with the dotted line. So it's in parentheses because it's not part of the melodic shape, but it's implied by the chord because it's a third of that chord that it lands on, something like this. So that C sharp, me. So on the third line, I rewrote it as rewrote the C sharp as D flat, because when we think about me, flat third in the key, we think about it as a flat third rather than a raised second, which is what C sharp looks like. So D flat. If you're thinking of F7 as the augmented chord, I'd be inclined to call that note C sharp. But if you're thinking about the overall key that we're in, going me to mi, think about it going from D flat, me, to D natural, mi. All right, and so this next line, I just embellished it slightly it's exactly the same, except I added another eighth note here on the front of the line just to make it more of a eighth note shape. Same, functionally the same. Ti, do, la, fa, me, ti, la, sol, with the implied mi resolution. Ti, do, la, fa, me, ti, la, sol, mi. All right. So that's really what this is all about. It's just understanding that sharp 5 note on the 5 chord, the way that it fits into a 2-5-1, at least the way I think about it, is that it wants to resolve up by a half step to the third of the 1 chord, me to mi. And I came up with a slight variation for this last line, where it starts the same, but when we land on the me note, I've rewritten it as C sharp, and so I've just added one note here, this E natural, and then it ends in the same way. So but in order to make this E natural fit in the line, since that would be, it's not a natural fit over an F7 chord. But if I change the F7, instead of playing F7, I play C sharp diminished. Think of it going from C minor 7 to C sharp diminished to B flat over D. The line sounds like this. So it's kind of an alternative approach to 2-5-1 would be 2 sharp 2 diminished to 1 with the third of 1 in the bass. So the bass line just being C, C sharp, D. So kind of a softer resolution. It's nice. And still has that implied me kind of buried in the line, but that basic resolution is still there. So it's good sound to get used to. It's like C minor, C sharp diminished, B flat over D. And I think we hear that in, you know, older standards and maybe like gospel type music, stuff like that. So something to play around with. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Hank Mobley. Thanks to the inventors of solfege and those who taught it to me in my early days at Berklee College of Music in Boston. I still use it every day. All right. Talk to you later.